How many of us ADHD women live in between extremes, all in or collapse? It's like your brain only has those two settings.
Either you're conquering the day or lying on your bed wondering if you're broken.
Turns out the gray, the middle ground, is where life actually happens.
Today, we dig into that tension, why the gray scares us, why rest feels dangerous, and what it means to live between the extremes.
Welcome back to Angry on the Inside, the podcast for women with ADHD.
I'm Jeannine.
And I'm Jess. We're two women diagnosed late in life with ADHD who spent decades thinking our extremes were normal.
We're here to talk about how to find a balance, because when your brain lives in extremes, the quiet middle can feel like failure, or worse, like nothing.
Before we get too deep into the gray, a disclaimer that these are perspectives, not prescriptions.
We're certified ADHD life coaches, not clinicians, and this is not coaching.
Everything we share comes from experience, study, and the many conversations with others and countless adjoining communities.
Take what fits, leave the rest, because this is not intended to be a self-improvement checklist.
The great myth that we all carry around, that resting equals laziness.
Definitely for women.
We are conditioned from girlhood that sitting still is not helping. It ties into our black and white thinking. We are allowed to rest. It is not tied to our worth, but it's the extremes that come into play. I still have something to do. There's always something that needs to be done, always something. And this one, though, kind of gets my goat because I can remember hearing my dad say about one of my stepmothers, she just never sits down. She's always got to be doing something. I'm not trashing my dad. I know that tons of people say this. Women say this about other women, not just husbands about their wives. Why don't you sit down? Why don't you relax? These are things others say. And even like your kids will say, and you want to be like, because if you all fucking help me, then there wouldn't be anything to do. And I could sit down. But there's always something to do in my brain, so I can't sit down. And that pisses me off. And it makes me angry. And then I feel guilty. And then I'm back in that black and white thinking where I'm saying I have to do this because if I don't, then I'm worthless. Or if I have to do this because if I don't, I'm not a good mom. I'm not a good wife. Yeah. It's rough.
You were saying that. I was thinking about well, why don't you help me? And then I could sit down. And I think, yeah, but I'll never ask for your help because I can do it all. And I should be able to do it all. Which is kind of, the hyper independence of refusing help. It feels like failure.
There's reasons behind that. There's big reasons behind being hyper independent because most of us have asked for help and not received it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of us at times we will tack that on to I'm just going to do it myself so that it's done right. That one's a toughie because that is something that lands on us when we do that.
I've found it, on many and self-reflection throughout the years, that one of the reasons I don't ask for help is because I feel like if there's something I'm working on, I don't want help because I'm fearful the other person's going to judge the way I'm doing it. I'd rather just do it on my own so I don't have to hear their judgment or feel like I have to defend the way that I'm doing it because I'm most likely probably approaching it differently than them.
Mm-hmm.
I know I can get it done. They can probably get it done too. I just want to do it my way and not have to spend time debating with them about the merits of the way I'm choosing to do it.
It sounds like you're feeling perceived.
Yes. Of course, that person's only going to think good or bad of me, right? Because it goes right back to that black and white thinking, right? They're going to think, oh, that's a weird way for somebody to do something, which automatically means they must think I'm a horrible person. Because if they're not looking at me in complete awe 100% of the time, then the only other option is they're looking at me like, oh my gosh, yeah, how does she survive day-to-day life?
I love that. If they're not looking at me in complete awe, that's so freaking true. I can't even handle, and this has been like an ongoing thing. My husband and I, we've been together for 18 years plus, and I cannot stand for him to stand and watch me in the kitchen. It doesn't matter if I'm making a grilled cheese sandwich or a piece of toast or I'm trying to wash a spoon. Oh my goodness. And over the years, I finally just gotten to the point where I turn around and I'm like, "You're making me feel perceived." And then he's like, "Oh," and he'll turn around and like walk out of the room.
I've never heard it explained that way. You're making me feel perceived. That's funny. It's true though.
It's a good word for it. I know it is a word that's used in the community as a whole, but I do think it's like it's a valid, solid word.
Well, yeah, it's you're gonna see past my mask that I have on. My mask, I am
Oh,
a perfect housewife. I do everything perfectly. But if you're watching me, you're gonna say, "Wait, she doesn't do it perfectly."
there are times people have made comments in the past and those things get in there. We will grab onto things like that, internalize them, and we will hold on to them and we will let them affect us so deeply in our trains of thought. With the rest versus laziness, ADHD women internalize this twice over because we're battling the executive function and challenges while we're trying to prove that we're not lazy. So there's all this shit that we do not want to do and that our bodies naturally want to go into a full on shutdown. There are all of these tasks. We enter task paralysis where we can't do any of it because there's too much to do. This is where we are an absolute piece of crap because we're sitting and we're
Yeah.
not even resting when we're sitting. No person with ADHD is ever lazy because our brains are 40% more active when we sleep than the average person, let alone when we are awake. We never ever get the amount of rest that the standard average person will ever receive. We're always, always going. Lazy is one of those words that kind of gets me because we'll all say it. Oh, I'm just being lazy
Yep.
today.
And I don't like other people referring to themselves that way or people referring to other people that way. Because I think very, very few people are truly lazy. There's something out. There's usually something going on.
Exactly. But in black and white thinking fashion, I will say, if my daughter says, I'm just being lazy, I'm going to take a nap. I am the first person to say, you are not being lazy. If you're taking a nap, you need to rest. Your body needs that. But you can bet your ass that I will say the same exact thing. I will lay down and my husband will be like, you need to take a nap because you need to rest. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be lazy today. I have
Yeah.
things to do.
I have to do things. I know.
And it's not a double standard because that's like, I think that's like the first thing. People think it's a double standard or that we're just trying to make it about us, but it's not. It's about how everyone else perceives us and how we perceive that they are perceiving us, right? How we feel they are seeing us, how we feel we are showing up. And when we have to mask and we have to be these things that we are not, that ties in with trying to reach that level of perfection and why it's a yes or no answer all the time for us, but not for the people we love or for the people that we try to protect.
I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
Me too. I am freaking tired just from talking about that for real,
We'll go take a nap and come back
right? We'll be back after this short nap. It's true that rest feels guilty and it can feel impossible in a lot of ways.
Are we really resting? We can look like we're just staring off into space, but internally, we're running 100 miles a minute.
We are literally always burning the midnight oil, which is part of the reason why so many people with ADHD have issues with their circadian rhythm, issues with sleep, getting enough rest, quality rest.
Always being tired.
People saying, "Oh, I'm tired too." No, dude, you're not tired like I'm tired. Though I think you are because I don't understand it, then I just keep pushing myself into burnout further and further.
Because I shouldn't be tired.
It's so common for families, partners, and coworkers to not see it because women's unpaid labor, their mental load and their planning and their caretaking is pretty much invisible to everyone else. What's awful is it becomes invisible to other women. We will judge each other in ways that we shouldn't because we'll say, well, if I have to do it, then they should have to do it. And that's not the way to look at things. That's not the way to set the bar for others. Well, if I had to, they'd have to. We're supposed to be a progressive group of people.
Yeah.
That is a example that just came out of my mouth that I just realized is black and white thinking towards each other. That's where we can be judgy towards each other and not realize that we're being harsh towards one another because we're thinking, well, I'm the one that's had to suffer through that. They should be fine. They can do that. If I could handle it, you can handle it.
That is very true. Yeah. No. And then I was like, can I go on my rage about social media again? I just think it makes it so much worse for everybody.
Social media can hit very hard for women with ADHD who do experience all or nothing thinking because we are constantly comparing ourselves to
Yeah,
others.
exactly. Yes.
And
All those influencers.
those people, they're putting in the work. They've done what they've got to do.
Yes.
We assume what we're seeing is actually what you're getting. And we aren't taking into consideration the idea that this person does have help or multiple people. They aren't the only person putting together all of this content. They're not the only person even coming up with all of this content. Well, that's just not the way it works.
Moving on.
The negative independence. Do you want to talk about that?
Hyper independence of feeling like we have to do everything on our own. It's like another mask we wear. I'm strong. I'm independent. I can do things on my own. But the truth is, we're just exhausted all the time because of that.
With the perfectionism cycle, it's something I am super big on because I've dealt with it so much in my life and people I love have dealt with it in their lives. If you've lived it, you'll recognize this. Step one, we create an unrealistic expectation. I have to get this exactly right. Step two, we procrastinate. We are afraid we won't be able to get it right and we don't want to be rejected and we don't want anybody to be mad at us. We try to avoid doing it. It starts to pile up and we hit step three, task paralysis. We will lean into that busy work, doom scrolling, cleaning, not rage cleaning, just that task paralysis cleaning. My absolute favorite task paralysis item, research. God, I love research.
I do too. But I can't stop because I'll never have enough information.
Yes! There is no description to describe the amount of overwhelm that comes from research and the amount of burnout that can come from research, but the amount of dopamine that comes from research that we cling on to. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
We should do a podcast called Research.
Yeah.
Freaking love research. I had a girlfriend a few days ago and we were talking on the phone and I had to learn something so that I could help her. And she was like, how'd that go? And I said, oh, it was real good. And she was like, I know you like to learn you some new stuff, bitch. And I was like, I do have to learn me some new stuff. So yeah,
I know.
that's one of the hangups. So let's kick into step four. We went from step three, task paralysis, into that missed deadline. Now, this is one that's very serious for us because many people can hit their deadlines due to the fact that they get 8 hours worth of work done in 2. They can put so much pressure on themselves and they can get in that zone and they can hyper focus and they can hit that deadline. But it doesn't always happen. And in the perfectionist cycle, rather than getting it done on time, we get into that task paralysis. We can't get anything done and we miss the deadline.
It's gotten harder since I've gotten older. I swear I used to be able to do that last minute thing. I feel like I miss the deadline more than I make it.
I do the same thing in my younger days. And maybe it was in my younger days when I gave more of a fuck. I don't really know, but I could always hit it. I loved that type of stress. Before I had an ADHD diagnosis, especially in my 20s and early 30s, oh my goodness, such a dopamine fiend when it came to that. And I never realized it. That's what I was doing. But I can step back and recognize it now.
I always thought it was cool too. Because if you think about movies, when there's always towards the end of the movie, when it's about everything's coming together and they've figured out how they're going to solve something, there's always that montage of them working into the night, working hard, getting things done, and then it all ends up perfectly. It's kind of always glamorous. It's adjacent to that idea of we think being stressed is, the more stressed you are, the more important you are. And I kind of
Yes.
think that being able to be stressed and throw it all together and be the saver at the last moment is very intoxicating, but damaging as well. Very exhausting.
But how much do you love to hear, "Thank God for Jeannine. She was able to pull that out of her ass."
You came through always.
You always come through. You are my go-to. And we had that, but we don't have it anymore. And we miss those deadlines and we start that shame spiral. Step 5 is shame, which fuels even higher expectations and the cycle restarts. So just to count it down, because I know that we talked quite a bit for that perfectionist cycle. Step 1, you have unrealistic expectations. Step 2, you procrastinate and you start to avoid it. Step 3, you end up in task paralysis. So you're doing whatever you can to not have to do the primary task. Step 4, you miss that deadline. And then step 5, we experience that shame
Yeah.
and the cycle starts all over again.
We see perfectionism as something that is going to protect us. If we're perfect, everything's going to be good. But it is a trap. It is what leads us to freezing and paralysis. When we're not perfect, the end of it is the shame that goes along with it. It's just really a big mind fuck to be going around thinking that way.
Yes, the cycle convinces us that we're lazy when really we're exhausted from chasing impossible standards.
A lot that we put on our own self. We just assume if someone else has anything to say, well, then obviously we're a complete failure. There's no in between. You either did a perfect job or you failed horribly.
That word is powerful. We assume, but we will tell ourselves that we know. I'm not assuming, I know. And that's one of those spaces when you hear it, when you say it, that you can flag for yourself. That is a step back moment. That is a yellow flag in front of your feet, whether you see it or not. I know I'm right. I know this is what they expect. I know. Do you? Have you asked? Hell no.
But they'll tell me what they think and it's not going to be good.
We don't know that's what it is because we haven't asked. That's a really good, solid yellow flag to say, hey, am I thinking in black and white? Am I making assumptions?
How do we go from this cycle? How do we shift and move towards a more balanced approach? It really is about learning to reframe it. Just that shifting of perspective, it really changes the meaning of the experience. And we're not talking about forced positivity, but just looking at new options. Is there a different way to think about something? Is there a different approach to it?
And that first idea that comes to mind is the self-compassion. We really do need to learn to put ourselves first.
That saying about, would you talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself? And I think most people would say no.
That in and of itself is a reframe. It's a change of perspective that you're not taking into account, especially with ADHD. We will have so many lines of thought going at once, and we will overthink things so much that we forget some of the more basic ideas
Uh-huh.
because we are so complex.
Ooh, that's deep.
If we want to talk examples of reframes, we can say, I failed, or we can say, I found a way that doesn't work for me. We can say, I'm lazy, or we can say, my brain needs a different entry point. For me, I know that a lot of times if I'm putting out something that I know is not going to be perfect, that I have to put something out so that I can get feedback from others to know how to fix it. I will simply tell myself, I am running in beta.
That's good.
To run in beta mode means that you need to be willing to put something out there so it can be adjusted, picked apart.
It sounds so painful.
For me, it
Painful, Jen.
is
Ugh,
painful.
I hate the feedback. Oh,
But if I can openly put something out there knowing it's intentionally not perfect, that is my reframe. Even then, I will catch myself up, but that is a reframe that I do for myself.
I just had a little light bulb go off when you said that because I hate feedback. You can tell me 10 good things and I'm just going to dwell on the one thing that you said could be, different. Not even that it's bad, but just, hey, here's a different approach. Approaching it as I am in beta. I know this isn't perfect. And so I'll almost be disappointed if somebody doesn't tell me something that can be done differently, or I could take a different approach, because that's where I am right now. I like that. That is such, yes. Literally, my brain's making connections right now because I've never thought of it that way. Wow, you're pretty smart. No, seriously, I'm like, oh my God. Because I hate feedback. I hate putting things out there until they're like perfect.
We talk about tricks and tools, things that we can use. Tools tend to be things that we can sort of put in our repertoire that allow us to actually change the trajectory of something we do in our lives, like on the regular. Whereas a tip or trick is something that is typically fueled by novelty or dopamine that you
Mhm.
will eventually get sick of
Yep.
and stop doing. But we try to be careful in saying which one is tool or trick, because one man's trick is another man's tool.
Wow. See, there you are again.
Woohoo!
I can reflect on that one.
Everybody listening, do you consider these to be tools or tricks? What else could be true here? If we're standing in a situation and we're making assumptions, but we do understand that we are having to make decisions and we're feeling overwhelmed for whatever reason, can we stop and say, what else could be true here?
And that can make a whole world of difference. It seems so simple, but it really can just change everything for you. If you just think of what are some other things. And I think it's from improv where it's the yes and you can hold two opposing thoughts in your head at the same time. I didn't finish my whole to-do list, but I made progress. So celebrate the progress you made instead of beating yourself up on the fact that you didn't finish your to-do list that day, which if you have ADHD probably had 50 things on it, including finish that thesis you never did for your doctorate.
Sticking with the ands instead of the ors. We talk about it. Vocabulary makes a difference. I didn't finish my to-do list and I made progress. Reframing can lift a lot of the weight from your own shoulders. All right, it's time for our favorite recurring segment. That's not normal.
Where we talk about the things we thought were just our quirks, but actually our ADHD chaos wrapped in coping.
This week's not normal, turning balance into a competition.
Oh, you mean when you try to schedule rest, but then suddenly it's color-coded with progress metrics?
Yes, that is exactly what I mean. Rest becomes a task. Downtime turns into a performance.
If your brain says you can't rest until you've done enough to deserve it, congratulations. You're not lazy, you're conditioned.
And you're probably exhausted because, yeah, that's not normal.
Trying to schedule rest like it's a meeting. That is not normal.
Like I need another thing to forget from my calendar.
Resting with a to-do list open in another tab? Yeah, not normal.
How many tabs do we all have open?
Putting guilt right next to the pillow? Definitely not normal.
I don't need to stare into the face of guilt. I see it when my eyes are closed.
Downtime that must be earned? Not normal.
I don't take my PTO. Why would I have to earn my damn downtime?
Productivity as self-esteem cosplay? Definitely not normal.
Everybody's got their kinks.
Resting, but with anxiety as the background noise? Not normal. So how do we reclaim the gray? I think awareness first is just being able to name it when you see it, naming out black and white thinking. I think by naming it, it starts to lose its grip.
Giving anything a name allows you to take back the control.
That doesn't happen in a weekend. It takes practice. Sometimes the gray feels heavier than the chaos.
But it's also where you find peace without a penalty.
So yeah, maybe we should rest.
We'll add that to the list.
Still figuring out our outro. Wait, am I saying that right? Outro?
Yeah, outro.
It doesn't sound like right. Still figuring out our outro. If rest feels like guilt, you're not alone.
We're still learning to live in the gray.
Maybe next week we'll actually stay there.
Maybe not. And that's okay.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening. And remember, you're not alone. Ta-da!